Hi everyone. Can you hear me? Yes. So welcome to the webinar. The topic for today's webinar is the perfect recipe for a digital PR, and we have Dr. Som Singh with us. Before handing over the session to you, to Dr. Som, I'll just introduce you Dr. Som. She is the founder of Anspan Consulting Group, and Anspan Consulting Group is the brainchild of Dr. Som and was conjured upon to help the startups and support the startups by consulting and advising them in the best possible way forward for any marketing communication activities. And the takeaway for today's session is what are the essential PR ingredients, learn the process involved, how a generous media list helps, what are the engagement patterns and recommendations, and how to find out the useful tips, how to different the content tool can help, learn about free tools, and how some paid tools can also help in creating a perfect recipe. So I'll just hand over the session to you, Dr. Som, and you can just take it forward. Thanks so much.
Thank you, Divya, for the introduction. Hello, everyone who has joined us on the call today. A very good afternoon to you all. Before I just get started with the session, I just wanted to add to what Divya talked about in terms of what we do at Anspan. So Anspan is a tech-enabled firm, so we have our own patent-pending technology platform that allows us to discover audiences across different digital domains, both web, social, and mobile. And over the last 3 years, we have worked with startups, large enterprises, and SMEs in India and across the world, where we have been helping them realign their go-to-market strategy to better derive ROI on the investment they make on digital. So having said that, one of the key attributes of any organization is to be able to understand how to deliver a very, very dynamic online PR strategy so that they can entice both their customers as well as their brand advocates on a long-term basis. Well, PR is not new to any one of us. PR has been a very core and essential communication platform for enterprises, startups, and SMEs for ages. What has changed today is that we are no longer talking about PR from a mainstream and online, offline only perspective, but we are talking about how to leverage the content that we create for PR on a long-term basis using smart digital assets. Therefore, the value that you derive out of it is much more sustainable. The key takeaways, like Divya highlighted, would be to understand what goes into building a great PR strategy, the process that is involved in ensuring that you get the most value out of your business, a generous help of the media list. It's very, very critical for organizations today that are leveraging PR agencies to understand what goes into the dynamics of a great PR strategy, as well as the tools that are involved, so that if they are able to internalize some of these, they are better able to leverage the external partner that they are associated with. Also, a very important thing is to remember what kind of engagement patterns should one adopt so that you can make the most out of the content that goes out on PR. PR today is not just limited to creating a brand identity. PR can be leveraged to get attention of investors. PR can be leveraged to get customers. PR can be leveraged to ensure that you drive the right kind of mind share amongst your brand advocates. Finally, we're going to look at the different content tools that's going to help you do it yourself. Not necessarily every company has the the money as well as the bandwidth to leverage an external organization to handle their PR. In that case, how can you do it yourself? We're going to talk about what are the tools that can help you get there. And also, if you're not just focused on doing your PR in India, but are looking to do PR outside, and again, do not have limited resources, both in terms of money as well as in terms of time, how some tools can help you get there. Now, let's get into the essential ingredients for digital PR. As most of you on this call are already aware that today all the offline mainstream as well as trade publications has a very, very strong online play. So with over 350 million internet users that are consuming content online on a daily basis, and out of them 125 million being just mobile content users, some of you may be surprised to know that it's News Hunt that gets a larger penetration of audiences than Times of India. Tools are getting more and more robust, and therefore one needs to know how to leverage them better. However, before you engage an agency or engage in doing PR for yourself, a critical thing to remember is not clear about what you're doing your PR for, and ensure that the communication is aligned in that manner as well. So the one product formula means that either you're communicating a product story, the product can be where you're trying to build a portfolio for a person. That can be a CEO of an organization, a founder of a startup, or a director of an SME business. However, you play as a product even in that right. The third thing to keep in mind when you're talking about a product is that whether you are a solution in terms of a service or you're a solution in terms of a product itself, which is directly consumable by the customer. So in that context, you have to be extremely aware of what you are highlighting. It's also very critical to understand who your target media is. Now, all of us get extremely excited thinking that the main lines like the Times of India, the Economic Times, the business standards of the world are the only focus areas for us. And in online, you're talking about the TechCrunch, you're talking about the NY Times, you're talking about your story. But each one of them may not be targeted to your end user. So it's very, very critical for you to define who that target audience is. So I'll give you an example. We were recently doing PR for a client of ours called Razorpay. They are a IIM incubatee, highly funded by Tiger Global and so on. Initially, when they were at the incubation stage, their target audience were the investors. Therefore, the story was to create a profile of the founders as well as the product to target the investor community. Once they raised funding, the target was more about the B2B customers. Therefore, the communication needed to be aligned to it, and so was the media list. So it's extremely important to keep in mind who your target audience is, and therefore which media will be able to best help cater to that requirement. And like I said, a favorable pitch note. It's important to remember that you cannot have one shoe size that fits all, and therefore the pitch has to be curated depending on your media list. The third and the fourth important part is when to start. Now, this is a question that we get all the time, that is there a good time to start PR? And I always tell this to all the startups as well as to the enterprise clients that we work with. Any time is a good time, and any PR is a good PR. It just depends on how you align the communication to better suit the target audience that you are creating it for. However, it just doesn't end with when you start. It also ends with how do you leverage the content. Therefore, a very smart social media strategy needs to be in place. Today, as we know, that both across web as well as across mobile, we have enough and more social media platforms where we use to communicate about our brand story. So just sending it out to the media alone is not sufficient. It's extremely critical to remember that a Quora can play a very, very important role in becoming your PR engine. So can a free PR log. So be aware of these areas and as well as the social media strategy. So if a PR is going out on PR log, ensure you have the right backlinks built to your Twitter channels, your Facebook channel, and your LinkedIn channels. And LinkedIn channels not just limited to your handle, but across the groups that you're connected to. And so it immediately aligns to your social media extensions. Once a PR goes out, it's critical to remember how to build backlinks so that there is traffic that gets generated from your social media channels, as well as it helps drive traffic to your website. And then comes the effect part. Now, most of the times, one of the things we are always posed with is how soon is it going to deliver results? Remember, anything takes time and continuity to deliver results. So be patient. So once you send a PR communication out to the target media, each one will take its time to carry the story out. You do not want few lines to be written, so you have to be cognizant of the media that you're reaching out to, and therefore building a good story takes time. However, if this is a press release which is going out on wire, the result is instantaneous. So you're going to instantly see results, and therefore you got to be quick enough to leverage your social media channels to start kind of driving traffic and see the kind of conversions and kind of inquiries you're getting from other people. And these other people are nobody else except for the target media or your investors or your customers. The end result, a lot of people are going to know about your brand. A lot of people are going to start reaching out to you for stories, and most importantly, revenue. One of the things I want each one of you today attending the webinar to remember, PR today is not just restricted to creating a buzz around your brand or your product. PR today helps in generating revenue. So it's extremely important to know how to leverage that. The process, I'm not going to spend more than a minute talking about it because it's extremely simple. You have to know how to create a boilerplate of your company, not more than 100 words. A boilerplate is nothing but a quick summary of what your company really does. And in this case, it's not necessarily the company that you incorporated, but it can be the product or the individual that you're talking about. A pitch note, not more than 500 words, because journalists really do not have time to go through very, very long pitch notes. It needs to very quickly articulate the value proposition, what your product is, what value it delivers, and how are you differentiating. It's also important to talk about the competitors because it's best you highlight if you do have competition than the media coming back and asking you, and then you're in a fix. And also when you're creating a pitch note, be cognizant of integrating keywords into your pitch note because especially when it comes to digital, it's very, very crucial to have the right keywords integrated so that the same is aligned to the content that you have on your website, the content that you have on your blog channels, the content that goes out on the press, the content you have on your social media. This allows a great SEO momentum. So it's very, very critical to keep that in mind. The third and the most important thing that I already kind of highlighted is to kind of create a media list. A media list is also meaning you are segregating the right media depending on the people, the product, the company. So it can be trade, it can be financial media, it can be mainline. So I'll give you an example. If you're doing a funding press release, your target is all of them. However, if you're doing a product press note, then ideally you should be targeting the trade, which is directly focused on your target audience who's going to read about the product, tech blogs, and news portals. You may not be able to generate a lot of buzz if you're just sending out to mainline media because that's not who your target audience is reading. So if it's a CEO of a company who's your target audience or your CIO, then you should be targeting the right trade that is associated with the profile of the customer who's going to read it. Moving on, in terms of where you can find good media lists, well, here we have given you a few links where you can go and find media lists on. It's very simple and easy and do it yourself. We have the Facebook groups and /media list where you will find the right media contacts. You also have your Facebook media movements group. You also have your Facebook media update group. And remember, journalists are as hungry for stories as you are to share one. So do not be on the back foot thinking that you are the one who's looking for it. So keeping a good relationship with them is very, very critical, and being active on some of these media lists helps you kind of ensure that happens. Now we're going to talk about a typical best practice in terms of how do you manage your media engagement and what kind of recommendations do you need to keep in mind on a monthly basis to ensure that happens. Ideally, the frequency of a press release should be not more than one a quarter unless and until you have significant stories to share. Exclusive pitch notes, you should share one a month, and I suggest whether you have a story or not, it's good to update your pitch notes and share it with your media contacts so they're aware of what's happening in your company. Why is it essential? Is every time they're filing a story, they keep in mind that they need to reach out to you and you are top of their mind. Now, press interactions, well, I say a cup of coffee never hurts. So find out who your target journalists are, take them out for a coffee, and I suggest you do it every fortnight. And again, depends if you have a story or not, also depends on whether you are a PR person yourself. the best way to do PR is to start by learning it how to do it yourself, right? Now hurdles, which means more about catching up, meetups that can be in terms of even doing it at your office. It helps them to be aware of where you are, what you're doing, the kind of team strengths you have, and also helps them in creating stories, which is not necessarily just about brand or product, but also about employment branding. It's hard to find good people to work for you, and PR is a great tool to do that. The last one is the mailer and newsletter, and I say this is a best practice every organization, whether a startup, an enterprise, or an SME, need to do every month. What's hot, what's not in your company. Remember, even your companies are worthy of news. So when you have something going on, and it may mean hiring somebody in the top management to a product release, share a newsletter with your media friends. They know what's up, and they also know when to put you up on a story. Moving on, the PR tips, content matters, and why I say it matters is at the end of the day, we all love good storytelling. So it's very important to know how you articulate that story to your media friends so that they are able to articulate the same way. Now, one of the things to remember and keep in mind is that they really don't have time to well articulate your product or your value proposition. It's you who need to be able to learn to write it yourself, and then they will add the masala on top of it. Don't expect a great story to come out if you have just put in bullet points. A great story needs a little bit of work from your end. 2 hours a day is all that you need in terms of trying to figure out how to write great content. And there are tools that help you do that, and I'm going to talk about it in the next slide. Spot trends, very critical to be cognizant of what's happening in the industry, what your competitors are doing, what's also your investors are looking for, so you know how to position yourself and your product in those storylines. Now, you may think that I am going to send out a note to the media and they're going to pick it up, but if it would be even better if you talk about a trend and share it with the media, and they find a story idea from your concepts. And that's a great way to reach out to them. Don't stop once you start. Just like health, just like your business, PR is equally important. So once you get started, it's a bad thing to stop, because you have to restart everything over and over again, right? So once you start reaching out to your journalist friends, keep in touch with them. Once you start writing to them, ensure that your newsletters are going out every month. And I say, hey, your blogs become a great way of PR. So a good article goes a very long way. People are constantly reading and consuming content every day, so that may just become a great avenue for you to attract stories. The other thing is, PR doesn't necessarily mean that you have to have a newspaper, a trade magazine cover you. Your blogs become a tremendously important engine to generate that mind share. Now, why do you do PR? You do it to stay on top of mind of your customers and your target audiences, that can be your investors and or your shareholders. Having said all of that, it's very critical to create your own PR engine, and a blog and an article engine can go a very long way. Now let's talk about the free tools when it comes to content creation. Plagiarism checks, very critical. Some of the most newsworthy articles get canned if they're plagiarized. Important to say where your references are from, important to quote your references. So be very careful about what you're writing, where you're picking up information from. Whatever you're writing about your product or your company is absolutely genuine, and use tools to validate that. The ideal score should be an 80% and above when you're doing a plagiarism check on content, unless and until you've used too many references from other places in your article. Autocrit. Well, I swear by it, and I even tell startups as well as large enterprises to swear by it. It's a great tool for non-writers. Autocrit is one of the tools that really helps a non-writer to get to the bottom of writing great content for PR, and most importantly, it allows you to stay in your 500 words limit, and the version is absolutely free. So I would ask each one of you who are listening to my webinar today to leverage this tool and give us your feedback. Now, free tools for press release. Very important to know for any startup as well as enterprise that not always do you have the resources or the funds to be able to leverage paid press release, because they're expensive, and not always do you need them if it's not critical information. However, a press note about your product needs to go out in a regular fashion. So how do you leverage that? Instant press release. It allows you to write format press releases in globally accepted formats. It also allows you to ensure that you are sticking to the basics of press release, and it tells you if the content is in adheration with what a press release format is. So I think a great tool for people to use it. The other important things to remember is nobody just reads content at a stretch. Infographics are fantastic, and you must be seeing in most of the newspapers and magazines today, people are using infographics to communicate their brand story. And I suggest you leverage some of these tools like Visualize, Infogram, and Easily to create very, very smart infographics absolutely free. Now let's focus on some of the paid tools. As just like you said, not everything comes for free, and some of the free lunches are not really valued for. However, in digital, free and paid goes hand in hand. So let's focus on some of the important paid tools. Blogging and social media tools. Pitch Engine. This is a great tool when it comes to connecting journalists in specific areas. So if you are a company focused on mobility, if you're a company focused on ad tech, or if you're a company that's focused on hardcore telecom products, you can leverage Pitch Engine to find out specific beats. It also allows you to reach out to the right journalists and work with them on a subscription model. So it's simple, easy to use, and extremely scalable. For blogging engagement, so if you're a company that's looking for high-end blogger engagement, Group High can prove to be a best friend. And guess what? It also adds on to your SEO, your site traffic, and your social media information. So it's one-stop shop for a lot of things that can help you get started. Now moving on to Muckrack. It's best in class again when it comes to connecting with journalists and bloggers. It has a wide range of topics that it gets discussed on a regular basis. It allows you to learn the nuances of interacting with journalists and your media friends, and especially when it comes to online and B2B channels, this tool promises to be fantabulous. So Muckrack is a best friend, especially for companies that are focused on B2B. Now, a tool that I swear by and we leverage largely for a lot of our clients is Help a Reporter Out. And like I said before, journalists are hungry for good stories, and they're constantly looking for support and information from smart companies and smart founders, and I think you should be the next. Connect with the journalists directly if you want to know more about what they're writing. To connect with them to understand what kind of information they're looking for. And you can receive up to 3 mails every day upon, on request of stories that they're writing. And I think it can be extremely personal in nature, especially if you're looking to build momentum outside of India. Help a Reporter Out is one of the most sought after tools for companies that are focusing their businesses not limited to India, but across the world. And I would definitely like to know feedback on some of these tools that you leverage, maybe the next time I do my webinar. In terms of wires, and what we mean by wires when it comes to digital, these are nothing but information dissemination engines. They allow your releases to be disseminated across different channels and across different media lines. The best ones are Vocus, Business Newswire, PR Newswire, PR Log, and India PR Web. Both PR Newswire as well as PR Log has free versions, and I would urge all of you guys to definitely give it a shot. Blogging and social media tools, again, an amazing engine like Your Pitch Sucks. It's kind of a validation about how to best write your pitches and how to articulate your value propositions really smart. Excellent tool for independent PR professionals and freelancers. So there's a lot of PR professionals and freelancers who are doing stories who are on Your Pitch Sucks, and it allows you to connect with them. The next is Zementa. Again, great for publishers and advertisers. It allows you to connect with diverse people and allows you to publish diverse content. It's an open source tool, and trust me, nothing like open source, because it allows you your reach to be so much more broader compared to a proprietary format of reaching out. The third one is Twillo. It's a multi-category platform to connect with stakeholders on Twitter. And guess what? Today journalists are using Twitter very, very largely to reach out or to look out for great stories. Connect with the right audience, follow the right people on Twitter, a forum to discuss various topics, and immensely important social media optimization. So do leverage till. The additional resources, if you are again looking to do PR of outside of India or across the globe, is Reagan's PR Daily and the Holmes Report and Copy Blogger. These are tools we swear by, and I would urge every PR enthusiast or every organization that is focused on digital PR and is looking to create contents that have long life to leverage some of these assets. Well, that brings me to the end of today's session, and I am open to questions. Vidya, over to you.
Yes, I'm sorry. I was on mute and I couldn't hear. I'm so sorry. Yeah, I couldn't speak actually. So can you hear me now?
Absolutely, Divya.
Yes.
I can hear you now. I
Yes.
think that brings us to the close of our discussion. I think the most important thing would be for the audience here to understand how to do PR themselves and how to leverage some of these best practices. But I would be open to questions so that we can help them use some of these tools or use some of these best practices better. Over to you.
Sure. So everyone, you can just type down your questions in the chat panel on the right hand side. There's a question panel. If you can see, you can just type down the question. And in the meantime, I'll just handle the questions which are there. So first question is from Dolly. She's asking how to take forward a PR activity for a cashback startup. So,
Okay. So if I understood Dolly's question correctly, she wants to find out the best way to do a PR activity for a non-funded startup. Will that understanding be correct?
yes, absolutely.
So Dolly, one of the most important things to remember for a non-funded startup is to create great relations. So some of the lists that I highlighted in the beginning of my presentation, you will find a lot of journalists available there. The best approach is to set up calls with some of them, meet with them for a coffee, or if it's completely online, or if you're trying to do it outside of your geography where you're based in, is to get on calls and set up webinars to showcase to them what your product and company is really capable of delivering. Along with that, a very, very well written pitch note that articulates the value proposition of the brand should be shared with all of them. And remember, don't use the same pitch note when you're targeting mainline versus a trade or online tech. Each one of them have a different story style. So first, understand their writing style, the story style, create your pitch note accordingly, share it with them along with your calls and follow-ups, and ideally you should be doing 2 to 3 mails per day to see a conversion of 1 to 2 stories per month. So if you see, it requires a lot of effort initially to be able to build that, and you can completely do it yourself. It just requires 2 to 3 hours a day to start with, and once you have mastered the basics, it is a 20 minutes effort per day. And that's all that it takes to be able to reach out to media lists and get story coverages. And by the way, if you just search for some of the journalists which you follow, most of their contact details are available online, and I think it should be extremely easy for you to reach out to them. If you need further assistance, please write to us at info@unspunmarketing.com. We'll be able to help you out with more guidelines. I hope that answers your question, Dolly.
Thank you so much. Going forward to the next question, it's if I have an idea with respect to my new startup, but there's already a startup which is working on that idea. Can journalists cover my idea, or they always want to cover only new ideas?
Let me tell you this. There is close to 17 new companies in mobility that have introduced wallets, and there is one company that is coming up every month. It doesn't make a story weak. It depends on the power of your idea. It's good to have competition, and let me tell you, journalists never stop writing stories because somebody else is working on the idea. The first thing, you reach out to them first. Secondly, articulate the competencies of your product or your ideas well. Third thing, keep in touch and keep sharing. Fourth thing, know your competition well. If you know what they're working on and how you're differentiating yourself, your story will always be more powerful than theirs. And finally, to add to all, remember to articulate why should you be on top of their radar? And that's where the relationship matters. Hope that answers your question.
Okay, thank you so much. Next question is from Dhruv. He's asking if someone wants to start building an online brand, which are the first few tools to use? I have no technical background.
Okay, so the most important tools that you should use is your social media channels, right? Today, most of the journalists or media houses are active on social media. So have a very strong Twitter profile depending on the kind of product that you're building. Follow the right people on Twitter, and I would suggest you use a tool called Manage Twitter. It's spelled as MANAGEFITTER, or Engagematic, ENGAGEMATIK, or Twilio. These tools allow you, based on your interest, to follow the right journalists and professionals, and therefore you know the kind of stories they're writing and you can start building your brand. Facebook is a powerful tool to talk about your stories and reach out to people. Use the right hashtags when you do that, so you know that you're reaching out to the right target audience. And finally, the LinkedIn groups. To start with, the social media works as an extremely powerful platform, and followed by, if you have not used Quora so far, which is spelled as Quora, you should start doing it right today. Create your profile. It's a great way to engage with people, articulate your interests, and it's a great way of building your brand. But remember, don't be on and off. An ideal best practice is five tweets a day, 2 Facebook posts a day, one blog article on LinkedIn per week is the best practice, along with a very, very powerful blog channel of your own, and that should help you.
Thank you so much. Arnab's question is, if you are planning a PR campaign for a profession, then how to take things forward for a profession as an individual?
That's a great way. I think that's a great question. We do not separate an individual from a product, is what I said. So the product can be you yourself, right? In that case, you have to spend more time actually reaching out to some of these journalists. Depends on what profession. You can be a politician, you can be a business owner, you can be a fashion designer, any of these. Or you can be just a social entrepreneur, right? However, it's very critical to keep in mind what you do. And there are people who are focused only on the segment that you operate in. You have to Google them up or go to the media list that I have suggested on my presentation and find them, sort them, and start reaching out to them. The process is exactly the same as you do for your product. The only difference is, in this case, the product is you, and that's more tangible. And therefore, individual associations and meetups can also prove to be extremely beneficial. We work with a lot of politicians, and we've seen that hurdles, meetups play a very, very critical role to create that brand value. And therefore, the other important thing to remember is to be an active blogger, talking about your capabilities and your area of interest to create that kind of resonance in the mind of journalists and media professionals. Hope that answers your question.
Thank you. Next question is from Ashish. He's asking, how is social media channel like LinkedIn, Twitter, and FB are important to build digital PR? Importance of...
Well, so first we have to understand, what does digital comprise of? So digital has basically 3 platforms. Your web, that is basically your website, your blog channels, your other active channels which you use to communicate, which can be a stumble upon, a delicious, and so on. Your social channels, which is your LinkedIn, your Twitter, your Facebook, your Quora, Quirky, Friendster, MySpace, depending on where you are. And finally, your mobile, right? So there are enough and more mobile apps today, just like I highlighted, like the likes of NewsHunt, NewsPattern, and so on and so forth, which are tremendous communication platforms for one to reach out. But coming back to, from a social perspective, the role of social in the overall digital PR is tremendous, right? The kind of activities that you see on Twitter is just a sign of the kind of digital patterns you see. So just in the beginning of my presentation, I highlighted, right? So in a daily basis, you see journalists, active journalists consuming close to close to about 125 million people actively consuming content on Twitter. So this makes it extremely powerful. LinkedIn, you have to be a part of the right groups. Don't become a part of groups because you feel they match your profile. Be a part of groups because you feel they match your end customer target profile. That is very critical. And therefore, it becomes an engine that automatically becomes sustainable. And just like I answered the last question, blogging, creating an article and publishing it on LinkedIn, backlinking it to your website, Facebook post with backlink to your website, Twitter feeds with tiny URLs feeding back to your website is the right way of creating online PR. That's the only way you leverage social to create digital PR. Building backlinks, having URLs, and another thing I want you guys to remember, which is not just the only limitation is SlideShare. SlideShare is a tremendous PR tool. A lot of journalists go onto SlideShare to understand product categories and product information better. So if you are a company that is focused on that, do make your information available on SlideShare for consumption. And the same you can use as Facebook posts, LinkedIn posts, as well as Twitter posts. I hope that answers your question.
Thank you. Going forward to the last question, it's how do I come up with different story ideas each time and create content to share with the journalists because my company is not comfortable in sharing numbers. And this becomes difficult information to share out for me.
Well, I've always seen there are two kind of companies that finds it hard to share numbers. Companies that are publicly traded, or rather privately held, and the second is absolute startups, right? Public companies, usually most of the numbers are already available online, so you really don't have to kind of do much. However, privately held companies find it extremely difficult to share numbers. What you do in that matter is just like you said, create right story ideas. Right story ideas coming from analyzing trends. Today, what is trending is not what is trending tomorrow. Now, the question is, does your product and solution cater to the trend that is going today? So giving you a simple example, right? If you're in telecom and if you are talking about, let's say, Andesef, 4G LTE, and you have a product and solution that caters to that. And today the story around Andesef or 4G LTE is about laying multiple lines or about creating multiple communication patterns or about cross communication. So you have to figure out, does your product or service actually provide a solution catering to that? That becomes extremely engaging. The other thing is, if there are PR stories that are emerging in nature, and what I mean by emerging is what is the current market scenario like? Where is it tilted? Now, if let's say you're a food tech company, if you've seen there is a lot of food tech companies shutting down today. However, you are a food tech company which is not just focused on the last mile delivery, but is focused on the operations part of it, is focused on sustainability, and your technology is able to deliver that. Therefore, you are using a trend which is against the industry, but creating a story for yourself because you're providing a solution against the current trend. So you have to figure out how you leverage trends, analyze them, and therefore build stories, which means you have to be cognizant of competition, cognizant of market drivers, and cognizant of the trends that are actually emerging in your current geography or geographies outside, and therefore how your solution kind of caters to that. Now you have enough and more tools that provides you that information, and I've already highlighted them in my presentation. If you just create if you just create alerts on some of these tools, you will be getting media monitors on a regular basis, and you can create media monitors on competition, on market trends, on emerging drivers, on technology, all of that. And therefore, once you keep getting this information, you know how to articulate your story better. Numbers not necessarily excite journalists. It excites them when it's a public company and when they're doing comparative analysis. It's the technology features, is the solution capability, and the power of that solution that excites a journalist. So that's what you need to keep in mind when you're building a story.
Thank you so much for the wonderful answer. And we missed out actually Charu's question. I'm taking that question as the last question now. So she's asking
Sure.
how to help a company coming up with a new app, and what will be the best approach in this segment?
That's a very interesting question actually, because when you are launching a new app, you need to keep in mind that before you reach out to the media with the app story or the app feature capabilities, do not forget to get your app reviewed. There is TechCrunch, there is TechLive, there are many agencies as well as technology publishing companies that do app reviews, and these are not reviews that you get from your end customers. These are technology capability reviews. These reviews play a very important role for a journalist to understand how to articulate your story better, and also excites them about the app, because there are so many apps that are coming out every day. They want to know how you're differentiated. So when an app is reviewed, it creates tremendous potential for a story around that app. So if you're building it, if you're already at a stage of beta and you've already kind of taken your app online, or it's already on a Google Play or an iOS, get it reviewed, share that review story with a journalist, and that's how you should go. I would say the best way to the best channels to reach out for an app story is the likes of TechCrunch and Your Story, because once it comes out there, it also leads to a lot of downloads. So I say, why to not leverage a story to ultimately results into downloads and finally lead to revenue. So you be smart about your app, and be smart about the kind of agencies you're reaching out to. Both do your reviews as well as your stories.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Divya, for all those questions, and thank you guys for asking. Do we have more questions, or are we wrapping up the session?
We are wrapping up the session. In the meantime, I have launched the poll for the ones who are interested in digital marketing courses which we offer. So they can select yes or if they are already registered. And thank you so much, Dr. Som. We know you have been having a really busy schedule. And for the ones who don't know, she is taking the session from an airport. So we really thank you for the efforts which you did with us and for creating such a wonderful session. Thank you so much.
No, it's an absolute pleasure. It's an absolute pleasure, Divya, and I thank all my attendees to patiently listen out to this webinar today. I'll be happy to come back and share more. But in the meanwhile, if you want to reach out to me or reach out to Anspan, you can write to Shom, S-O-M, at anspanmarketing.com. That's spelled as UNSPUN marketing together.com, or info@anspanmarketing.com, or write to Divya, and she will help us build more sessions like this that can better articulate or help you in solving your business dynamics. Thank you guys again, and I wish you all have a great weekend, and hope to participate again in a great session soon. Thank you, Divya, for conducting it. It was an absolute pleasure.
Thank you so much. Bye-bye.
Bye.